and families. It's like a built-in support group.
Not for me, Lena said. My parents both passed away while I was in here. There's nothing for me back in Willow Creek. She didn't add that she suspected her parents' illnesses and subsequent deaths, within a year of each other, were partially due to the stress and shame she'd thrust into their otherwise calm and slightly boring lives. They hadn't lasted long enough to hear the truth. Not that they'd been listening. Not to Lena, anyway.
So where do you want to go?
Mrs. Stanfield asked with concerned eyes. To be honest, I don't really care, Lena admitted. The social worker shook her head as she studied the paperwork in front of her.
I see here that you're only 43. She said this as if 43 were young. And you seem intelligent and well-spoken. And is it true that you were a pastor's wife?
She looked up with raised brows. Lena sighed, averting her eyes until her gaze landed on a faded poster about STDs that was hanging lopsided on the bulletin board behind Mrs. Stanfield. The headline read, "What you don't know could hurt you." Well, that seemed true enough. Mrs. Stanfield cleared her throat.
Lena?
Yes?
I was just saying, how about if I put a release package together for you?
A release package?
Yes. I can choose what I think would be a suitable town for you, make your living arrangements, set up some temporary employment, get your transportation worked out. Would that be acceptable?
Lena slowly nodded. I would really appreciate that. Mrs. Stanfield smiled as she closed the folder.
Then we'll do our best and trust God with the rest, right?
Right. Lena forced a smile, but as she thanked the woman, her voice sounded flat and lifeless to her own ears. When she returned to her cell, she decided not to think about her upcoming release anymore. It wasn't that she wanted to remain in prison, but at the same time, she couldn't imagine life beyond prison. In fact, she couldn't imagine life at all. Today, when the head matron had handed Lena a rumpled grocery sack of used clothing, which included this ugly purple parka with a broken zipper, a pair of black polyester pants, and a red acrylic turtleneck sweater, Lena had wondered if she'd been naive to allow someone else, even a kindly older lady, to make arrangements for her fate and future. Now, as the bus sped north into what seemed the heart of this winter storm, Lena clutched the worn handles of the secondhand bag and wondered about the release package tucked inside. Was she a fool to have trusted Mrs. Stanfield? But then, naivete had once been Lena's trademark. Even when her own trustfulness betrayed her and naive innocence deceived her, she still hadn't grasped the magnitude of her own gullibility. Her stomach growled again, almost as if scolding her for oversleeping in the library. Of course, her laziness had cost her dinner. Her just desserts reminded her of her father's discipline when she broke his unbendable rules. He would scowl and remind her that a rod is reserved for the backs of fools. Lena didn't want to think about that now. Instead, she turned on her reading light and opened her oversized handbag. Despite the ziploc of travel-sized personal items and a large envelope that contained her release package, the bag was mostly empty. And it smelled funny. She extracted the envelope and looked at it. Her future was contained inside this envelope. It would likely be as bland as Manila, too.
Your destination is New Haven,
the social worker had informed Lena as she met her outside the women's correctional facility earlier that day.
Connecticut?
Mrs. Stanfield shook her head.
There are actually a number of New Havens in the country. In this particular New Haven, a small town in northern Minnesota, I happen to have a friend who is willing to give you a job.
As she drove Lena into town, she explained that a bus ticket, directions, names, and addresses were enclosed in the envelope.
He will also find a small amount of cash in there,
she said before she dropped Lena off.
But you'll have to be extremely frugal until payday.
As it turned out,